Welcome to another episode of The Buzz. I'm your host, Dion Spires. Political season is fully underway and the 2016 presidential election is quickly approaching. Today, we're talking all about voting. Voting is our right and responsibility as citizens of the United States, but it can be confusing and downright difficult at times to know where, when, or how to vote. That's why we're joined in studio today by Colette Leiser, the outreach specialist for the Supervisor of Elections, who's here to simplify the process of voting. How are you doing today, Colette?
Oh, I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So before we get into the details of how to go about voting and where you can vote and all of that good stuff, tell me a little bit about what your position is and what your responsibilities at the elections office include.
Yeah, of course. Well, in my new position, I'm going to be mostly in charge of the many workers that will be staffing our 9 early voting sites, which I'm really excited about. Last spring, I was in charge of the high school outreach events, which I really enjoyed too. And I really have the most fun going out into the public and spreading voter awareness. So. Cool. It's great.
So what were those high school outreach events that you were talking about? What kind of information were you providing to the younger generation?
Well, we'd go to as many high schools in Polk County as possible, and we would just let them know how to register to vote. We'd pre-register students that are 16 and 17, and then they'd get like a birthday card in the mail when they turn 18, and then we definitely register the 18-year-olds and let them know that they do have a voice in the election.
Nice, and that's important to let them know up front so that they do get in the habit of going out to vote and making sure that that's on their priority list of responsibilities. When you were going out into the public and meeting those young people, did you notice, was there a lack of awareness? Was there a good amount of awareness, or what was that like for you?
It really depends on which high school it is and like how the staff is into it. Like if the teachers are into it, like a lot of teachers will give them extra credit sometimes if they register to vote. So that's usually, that's what helps. So it really just depends.
Okay. And were the high schoolers enthusiastic about voting, or how was the response that you got from the high schoolers?
There would be some that are enthusiastic. I'd say most, they're a little unaware, or like they'll just be like, I don't know that much about the candidate, so they won't even bother, or they think they're too young.
Right.
But it's really refreshing when there is like a line going like, yes, I want to vote, I want to participate. So it's really cool.
Cool. Well, hopefully what we can do today with this episode is raise some awareness in high school and college students and then get you guys that line wanting to register. I know that whenever I went out to vote for the first time, it was very intimidating. It was very nerve-wracking. I felt kind of clueless. So to start off, I want to ask, what are some of the important dates that people in Polk County should know about as far as when the voting election season comes up?
Well, the most important date that people should know is the deadline to register to vote before the upcoming elections. So for our upcoming primary election in August 30th, you should be registered by August 1st, which is 29 days before the election. Okay. So you always want to make sure you are registered 29 days before the election. Many people aren't really aware of the primary elections that come up, but we know for sure that people know about the general election that's going to be November 8th, since it's the big election for president.
And with the primary election, maybe this is common knowledge, but I found that I didn't really fully understand what it was. What does the primary election mean, and why is that important to get involved with?
Well, the primary election is when you nominate the candidates for president. It's not really voting for the president. I think people just get confused, and then there's also a lot of other local races as well that are just as important that you can vote on too.
What can people expect to see in August on that primary ballot?
Well, the primaries, they consist of a lot of local races that definitely make a difference with the state of Florida, and they're very important to vote on. So it's important to show up for the primary.
Definitely. Now, we talked about it a little bit as far as the age, where you said the 16 and 17-year-olds pre-register and whatnot. Who is eligible to vote, and how did they get registered?
Well, all American citizens, they're eligible to vote that are 18 and older. And it's super easy to register. You could just go to polkelections.com under the Register to Vote tab, which is the most popular. Or you can go to most banks, libraries, and post offices and pick up a form. Or you can just give our office a call, and we'd be more than happy to send a form out.
Okay, cool. So you make it really easy to get it the most convenient way possible then.
Yes.
So once you're registered, I know that there's different voting sites throughout the county. First off, what are those sites? Do you have them offhand, or is there a place that people can find them?
Well, you can find your precinct location on your voter registration card, or you could go to the Polk Elections website under the precinct lookup tab.
Okay.
Or you can just give us a call as well,
All right.
and we'd be more than happy to help them out.
Cool. And when someone registers to vote, is there a designated precinct based on maybe where they're located, or how does that get determined?
Yes, there is. And like I said, it is located on your voter registration card, and
Okay.
it's super easy to find it out.
Okay, cool. So with the precincts and the voting locations and whatnot, is there a list anywhere of the different precincts or the different locations that people may be assigned to?
Well, there is 167 precinct locations, and it does depend on where they live. And you can find that information on their voter registration card. You could go to the polkelections.com website to find out your location, or you can just give us a call, and we'd be happy to help you figure it out.
All right. And when someone shows up to vote, what all do they need to have on them when they show up?
Well, the most important thing is a valid photo and signature ID, such as your driver's license. So as long as you have that, you should be able to vote at the polls.
Okay. Do you need to bring your voter registration card or any of that too, or is it just the driver's license and then you have them on file?
Oh yeah, you definitely should bring your voter registration card. It's just, I've heard a lot of people say like they won't vote because they don't have their voter registration card because they might lose it. So we like to stress that as long as you have your license, you can vote, but it's really nice to bring your voter registration card too.
All right. Now, if say you're living in Florida currently, we cater to a lot of college students with this show. If I'm from another state, from out of state, and I'm currently living here, but I'm not a permanent resident, how does that work with the voting process?
Well, students, they have a choice. They can either register in Polk County and vote at their local precinct, or they could just request a vote by mail ballot from their home location, and they can vote that way. It's pretty simple.
So I've never heard of these terms before, but there's open and closed primary states. We were talking about the primary elections prior to this question. It's important to know what these terms mean. What's the difference between an open and a closed?
Well, I'll start out by saying that Florida, we are a closed primary state, but in our August 30th primary coming up, there will be something for everybody to vote on. If you're a Democrat or a Republican, you'll be able to nominate candidates for the general election, and then there will be plenty of other nonpartisan issues that are just as important that everybody can vote on.
All right, great. Now we've talked a lot about the primary voting. When the actual election comes, there's actually an option to do early voting, if I'm not mistaken. Tell me a little bit about the early voting and how that works.
Well, there are going to be 9 early voting sites that will be open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and any registered voter can go there before Election Day. They will be open from August 20th to the 27th. So it's super easy. You don't need to call us or anything. You can really just show up if you're not able to vote on actual Election Day. So it's very convenient for voters.
Cool. And there's no preparation for that as far as registering for early voting specifically or anything? You just kind of show up at your...
you just show up, just make sure to have your valid photo and signature ID and you'll be good to go.
Nice. And everyone's got a location for that based on their residential address as well?
And you can definitely just call our office to find out the locations or look at the Polk Elections website.
Cool. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more on The Buzz.
Are you interested in running a business while making your government more efficient and effective? The Program Support Center is the largest shared services provider to the federal government. We deliver services to federal agencies across a spectrum of functions, so our customers can focus on their missions. We are looking for savvy, passionate business professionals who will excel in an environment that encourages individual contribution and collaborative thinking.
Our staff is our greatest asset, PSC's 2014 Customer Satisfaction Survey.
PSC has the entrepreneurial environment of a private sector company, with the stability of a larger employer like the federal government.
For more information, visit psc.gov/jobs.
My name is Elijah Armstrong, and I am a high school senior in Jacksonville, Florida. From the start of my freshman year until my junior year, I was a part of my school's International Baccalaureate program and on track to graduate with an IB diploma. At the beginning of my junior year, I noticed I was feeling incredibly sick after leaving my math class. I eventually went to see a neurologist, and it was determined that the lights in my math class were triggering a neurological condition that was very detrimental to my health. After every time I went into the classroom, I would have to leave immediately to go to the hospital and receive IV treatment. When I asked the school if they would make accommodations, such as switching me into another classroom or letting me take the class online, I was told that the school didn't do accommodations and that if I needed them, I would have to leave the IB program and the school. I knew this was wrong, but I wasn't sure why or what I could do about it. For a long time, I felt like I was screaming at the top of my lungs, but no one could hear me. Finally, a lawyer heard about my case and made me aware of the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Rehabilitation Act and what civil rights mean for my rights as a student with a disability. The Americans with Disabilities Act in Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act say that students have the right to request accommodations from a public school if the student has physical or mental disabilities that are hindering them. The school must make every effort to accommodate any student with a disability. The lawyer also made me aware of the Office for Civil Rights. The Office for Civil Rights is a section of the Department of Education that takes complaints from people who feel they have been discriminated against. The Office for Civil Rights has the ability to enforce the laws that the district might not have been following before. In my situation, the discrimination I faced was huge, and as a result, my GPA dropped from a 3.8 to a 2.6. This experience seemed almost as if the school wanted me to fail, and I began to doubt that I could make it into college or even graduate high school. With the help of the Office for Civil Rights, I'm proud to say that I will be graduating with my class in June and look forward to beginning my freshman year at a great college. I am excited about starting at my chosen college as they have already introduced me to an expansive list of accommodations they have available to students with disabilities. I am looking forward to becoming a responsible adult who can manage and describe my own accommodations. I strongly believe and continue to advocate that students and parents become familiar with the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Office for Civil Rights so that they can quickly take action to alleviate any discriminatory situation. It is important to maintain high expectations for students with disabilities. Everyone should be given a chance to perform and use their gifts to the highest level they can, including advanced placement and international baccalaureate courses in high school. Disabled and incapable are not synonymous.
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service manages our national wildlife refuges. These public lands and waters have been set aside to conserve America's fish, wildlife, and plants. Donnie Browning has worked on refuges for almost 30 years.
National wildlife refuges are special places for wildlife, cultural resources, natural resources, and for all of us too. Refuges are protected, managed, and sometime enhanced on the various areas that we have for the wildlife species that utilize the areas. This work creates a diversity of wildlife species in the area and also creates a diversity of recreational activities for the public to enjoy. The National Wildlife Refuge System itself started in 1903 with Theodore Roosevelt, and it was a small island down in Florida, which we're fortunate enough to have here in, of course, the Southeast. It was established there to help protect egrets from the plume trade. And through the years, the National Wildlife Refuge System has evolved from just protection to now protection and also enhancement where we can, and then also for the public to enjoy the national wildlife resources. For example, if you go to Cape Romaine on the coast of South Carolina, it's an excellent place for kayaking. Or if you go to Santee in South Carolina, you've got an auto tour route that you can take that takes you into a section of the refuge that is away from the main office. And another example of a great opportunity on National Wildlife Refuges is the canoe trails that we have on Okefenokee Swamp. I've been very fortunate in my life to enjoy the outdoors and have the opportunity to actually work in it. It gives me great pleasure to do the work that we do for wildlife and see the wildlife actually being able to use those areas. It also gives me great pleasure when I see the public come to those refuges and the families that bring their children. And I hope one day that my daughter can bring her children to enjoy those same National Wildlife Refuges that we enjoy today. And it's the reason that we've set National Wildlife Refuges up to where the future generations can enjoy the same activities and same sights and sounds that I have.
College or career school is an important step in achieving your future goals, and there are many financial aid options to consider. Did you know that a federal student loan can be a great way to help pay for school? After all, a grant, work-study job, or a scholarship can be a huge help, but these forms of aid may not cover the full cost of attending school. So if you decide to take out a federal student loan, it's important to understand what you are getting and be a responsible borrower. Getting a loan is a big decision. You might be paying your loans back for 10 years or more, so take your time to decide. And remember to accept only the loans that you need, because you'll have to repay them once you're out of school. Here are a few things to keep in mind when deciding how much to borrow. Do some research. Make sure that your school is the right fit for you, both educationally and financially. Location, location, location. The amount of money you need to borrow can depend a lot on where your school is located. In-state schools and community colleges may cost less than out-of-state schools. And finally, getting an idea of your future income is also important when deciding how much to borrow. Starting salaries vary greatly depending on your career path, so it's worth thinking about how the amount of your loan will affect your future finances. After all, your student loan payments should be only a small percentage of your salary after you graduate. Once you've decided on your school and figured out how much money you should borrow, you'll need to sign a promissory note, which is an agreement to repay your loan. Make sure you keep a copy for your records. If you do take out loans, you'll need to keep in touch with your loan servicer when repayment begins. Your loan servicer will make this easy for you by offering web, email, and phone contact options. If you make this investment in your future, being an informed, responsible borrower can pay off in a big way. If you have questions or need more information, please visit studentaid.gov.
Welcome back to The Buzz. I'm here today with Colette Leiser, an outreach specialist for the Supervisor of Elections, and we're talking about voting. Now, before the break, we talked a lot about the primaries and how to register and who can register and that sort of thing. I'm curious to kick off the second half with young people who maybe don't fully know a lot about elections or they haven't voted for the first time or something like that. What are some of the misconceptions that you've seen from young people about voting?
Well, the most common phrase that I hear is "my vote doesn't really count," which is really concerning to me because I don't think the young people realize how much voting impacts our everyday lives, whether it's like a big or small decision. And they don't realize like how powerful it is to be able to have a voice in the election. And that's what we try to do at like our outreach events, to let them know how powerful it is. Another misconception that I do hear is a lot of people think that they're going to be frequently summoned for jury duty. And I try to let them know we are not affiliated with that. It's just if you have a Florida driver's license.
Okay, well that's good to know. Because I'm sure that is something that would kind of
like I have a lot of people who are like, I don't want to go do jury duty.
Right.
Just like,
not the same thing at all. So if, as students, you and I both know, being more recently graduated, sometimes it's hard to find time to leave campus and go do things that, even if they're important things like this. I understand that you guys have voting by mail.
Yes.
So tell me how that works, because maybe that's something that can benefit some of the viewers and they can still vote without having to make it out to their precinct.
Definitely, and it is very convenient. All you have to do, you can go to polkelections.com and request to have a vote by mail ballot. You can give us a call and let us know. And like, it's really simple. It'll just come in the mail to you. You can vote, send it off. And what makes it really great is that if for some reason you're like, oh, I do have time to go to my precinct, you don't even have to worry about voting by mail. You can just keep that and go to your precinct. So it's really like you have a lot of security. So you could either vote by mail or go to your precinct.
Great. So even if you've received the ballot, you're not obligated to do it by mail, is what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Because like some people, they think, oh, I do have time to go to my precinct. Right. So they can, and they'll think like they have to vote by mail. But it is a really good option for people who are on the go, don't want to wait in the lines at the polls, like if they have to go to work or class or something.
Great. So with the election locations, obviously it takes a lot of volunteers and a lot of help to keep those functioning, especially with so many across the county, across Florida and whatnot. So if someone is interested in working as an election worker, can they get involved with that? How do they get involved with that?
Well, first they should know that it is going to be a paid position, which a lot of people really like. The wage ranges from $106 to $250 per election. Secondly, they should know that they will be well trained by our staff, and they'll be well supported. And lastly, they should know that election day, it is going to be a long day, but it'll also be very rewarding. And actually my mom, she's been a precinct clerk for many years and she really enjoys it, and she's going to be working this election season too. And then if people are interested in being contacted for election work, they can just go to our Polk Elections website, or they can give us a call and we can give them the information.
All right, great. So is there any kind of qualification that they need to have if they want to be an election worker, or do they simply sign up and then they'll get recruited as you need them? Or so there's no kind of background that they need to have or anything, and political background?
Well, they do need to be a registered voter.
Okay, easy enough.
Yes. And then we'll give them a call.
Cool. And then that, what kind of a time commitment is that for someone who's maybe interested, but they're like, I don't know if I can do it with the training, and how many days is the election worker process for them?
Well, I know election day you do have to report by 6 a.m. and then you're there pretty much all day. So it's a very long day. With training, you do have to go to a couple training sessions too.
Are there any different types of workers, or different times that they could end up working in or whatnot?
Well, there are workers for election day and there's workers for early voting. And early voting will be a couple of days. And then for training, there's about 12 different training sessions, and people can pick the one they want that's most convenient to them. And then the training will last from 2 to 8 hours, depending on the position that they get.
Okay. So it's pretty convenient for them to kind of work it around their schedule.
Yes, we do try to work around their schedules as much as possible.
Cool. Now with your position that you're in now, we talked about before how you're working with a younger demographic. You're kind of trying to help them realize why it's important to vote, get them set up to do it. What is the hardest part of your job that you've got to do?
Well, really the hardest part of my job is expecting the unexpected, which is also the most exciting part of my job. every day at the elections office, there's always something new going on, and really it's all of our jobs to just everybody get together and get what needs to be done. So.
And being that you're still fairly young, it's probably fresh in your memory whenever you started voting. Was there any, just to make you kind of relatable to the audience, was there any apprehension or any nerves going into it, into your first time voting, and how did you overcome that? If so.
Honestly, I didn't.
No?
But I think it's just because of my family background. Like, they've always told me your vote counts, no vote, no voice. So, I mean, I signed up in high school, George Jenkins High School, in the cafeteria. I had no hesitations, and then I had no hesitations to vote for president, I think 2014, when I was able to vote for the first time. So
Okay.
I was pretty excited about it.
Yeah, that's definitely great to know.
Yeah.
Your voice counts, have that reinforced from a young age, because that definitely will make you more comfortable.
Yeah,
I think.
and I always try to tell my friends too, who are a little apprehensive. I'm like, no vote, no voice. You should vote.
Yeah, because
it's not hard.
Every vote does count for sure. I know that I was nervous whenever I went the first time. That's why I asked. I went with my mom. I didn't want to go by myself. I was 18 years old, but I still felt like I wanted that security blanket of someone's there that I know waiting in the line with me and whatnot.
I remember I went by myself, but then they all clapped for me because they're like, "Oh, it's your first time voting," and the whole precinct clapped for me, and that was a little embarrassing. I mean, I liked it though. I think that was the only thing I was like, "Oh."
That's funny. You get a little celebration for it.
Yeah, which is a good thing though. You should applaud everyone for first-time voters.
Definitely feel the pride and the happiness of being there and coming together to make that decision.
And then you could tell the precinct workers are having a good time too. So.
Yeah, definitely keep their day exciting. 'Cause it's a long one for sure.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you want to share with the young people that are watching this show about elections or registering or anything like that?
Yes, I would just like to say that there really is no excuse not to vote. Many young people, they say, oh, they're too busy with school and work. And really, our office provides a lot of services that make voting quick and efficient. So it's super easy to vote and not time consuming at all. And then the other most common excuse I hear is that they're just not informed about the candidates or amendments that are going to be on the ballot. But really, if you just take a couple minutes a day to do your research, you'll be well informed in no time. So that isn't an excuse either.
Yeah. And on that same note, I don't know if this is something that you can really elaborate on right now or if it's too early. I know a lot of things aren't finalized for the ballot that's coming up in August. Once it is finalized, is there an approximation on when those will be finalized and where people can find information about that so that they are prepared?
Well, once it is finalized, we'll be sending all voters a sample ballot in the mail, and then it'll also be available online for everybody to see. So it won't be a surprise when they go to vote.
Okay, great. Because I think that's one of the most important things is being prepared. Because like you said earlier, I think if you're not prepared for it, you maybe don't feel like there's as much purpose to go do it.
Yes, exactly.
So that's definitely good that they can get that resource in advance. So. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I know it's important information that I benefited from. I think everyone who's watching definitely could.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Anytime.
It was a pleasure.
That's all the time we have for today. If you'd like more information about voting in Polk County, please visit polkelections.com. You can catch this episode all month on Mondays and Wednesdays at 1 and 7 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Thank you for joining me on another episode of The Buzz. I'll see you next time.